One morning I was reading in my quiet time in Psalms 127, and it said, "Your sons are an inheritance from the Lord to you." At that point, both of my boys were off at school. Josh was at LSU and Jordan was at the University of Mobile. And I decided, you know what, I want them to know how much I love them. So I got out a note card that morning and I wrote both of my boys and I just said, I just want you to know I'm crazy in love with you. And I could not be more proud of who you are. I mailed those cards, sent them off in the mail. About 3 days later, Josh called me, my oldest child, and he could hardly talk. Big lump in his throat. Once you get to know Steve and I, you'll find out we cry at the opening of Circle K's. It doesn't take a whole lot for us to cry. And all he could say was, "Mom, thanks, I needed that card." And I said, "Baby, you're welcome." Jordan never got the card, never went to his P.O. box, has no clue there was ever a card there. But I realized that the one that needed it the most got it. Now, what God had been convicting me of was this. In my irritability, there was one person I took it out on more than anybody. Let me ask a question. How many of you are the firstborn? Raise your hand.
Wow.
I am so sorry. I really am. Because I recognize the fact that I named my kids Josh, Jordan, and Janae. And it didn't matter if Jordan was doing something wrong, I yelled Josh.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if Janae and Jordan were doing something in another room, I yelled Josh. I had so many expectations of Josh. I thought he should handle things right. I put a lot of pressure on him, and I took my irritability out on him a lot. So after I sent that card, and God was working in my heart, and let me stop here and tell you a little bit about Josh. Some of you may be able to relate to this. When Josh left home to go off to college, Steve told you he got a soccer scholarship, and he got a soccer scholarship to Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi. When he went off to college, can I just tell you what he basically said? To hell with everybody. Because at that point in Josh's life, coaches had put expectations on him. The church had put expectations on him. We had put expectations on him. And he had decided, you know what, I am sick and tired of expectation. So he did what a lot of kids do when they go off to college. He went and decided to sow his oats. That first year of his college, he was an incredible goalie of that soccer team, but he did horrible academically. Horrible. Came home after the first year with a 1.7, I think.
Whoop, whoop.
Horrible. Steve and I weren't sure what we were going to do with him. That summer, he went wakeboarding one day, and he called us from the hospital. He said, "Mom, I had a wakeboarding accident. I'm at the hospital." I said, "We're coming." We drove to the hospital. Well, he tore his rotator cuff. Y'all, he was the goalie of the soccer team. You kind of need your shoulder if you're the goalie. He had to have surgery on his rotator cuff, and then, of course, the doctor said, "You got to do physical therapy for 6 weeks." So we looked at Josh at that point, and we said, "Guess what, Josh? You didn't do very well at Millsaps, so you're staying home, and you're going to go to junior college." Now, y'all, once kids go off to college, they're never supposed to come back. I mean, that's not the intention.
Thank you.
And we knew it was going to be horrible because, you know what, we have rules in our house.
College kids' nights don't start till 11.
Yeah.
And we're
been
old
in bed
and we're
an
in
hour.
bed by then, you know?
So it was not a fun semester, can I just tell you? Number one, it wasn't fun for him because all of a sudden everything he thought he would be is now out the window. His soccer career is over with. Now he's living at home and going to a junior college. And this is what we told Josh. We said, "You know what, Josh?" We said, "If you can make a 3.0, we'll let you go wherever you want to go from here." Well, can I tell you, by the time that semester ended, he had a 2.8, and we said, "That's good enough. You can go."
Close enough, dude. I don't like you and you don't like us.
He didn't like us, and we weren't real happy with him. So he went to LSU. And this is what he said to us as he headed out in January. He looked at Steve and I, and he said, "I'm going to LSU, and I don't need y'all's help." And he's stubborn. Oh, can I just tell you, stubborn and strong-willed. I don't know where he got it from, but he is stubborn and strong-willed. So he goes off to college, and now he goes and gets student loans, and he's going to take care of himself. About a month later, he called me, and he said, "Hey, Mom." I said, "Hey, babe, how's it going?" He said, "Well, I got a job." I said, "Good." He said, "No, you're not going to like it." I said, "Josh, what are you doing?" "You don't need to know, Mom. Just know I got a job." I said, "Josh, what are you doing?" He goes, "Mom, I'm a bouncer at a bar." And I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you.
Preacher's kid. Whoop, whoop.
But let me tell you something. The greatest thing that happened at that point is God had convinced me and showed me that he loved me unconditionally, no matter who I was. And I'm telling you, it made Steve and I decide, you know what, we're going to love that boy with no requirements on him. We're going to love him just as he is, just like he is. And I'm telling you, it took us a couple of years. But we would go to those LSU games. We could only go on Saturday afternoons because we had to be back for church on Sunday mornings.
He'd call and say, hey, Dad, I got some tickets to LSU game. It's a 2 o'clock game. Y'all can come to the game and you can be home and by 10 o'clock at night on Saturday night and be at church on Sunday. I said, man, Mom and I are there. We're there, dude. We're there. He goes, now, Dad, you need to come early, like 11 or so, because we tailgate. I said, man, we're there. He goes, now, Dad, you know, my buds and I, we kind of do different tailgating than you would. I said, yeah, you got any Diet Coke? And he goes, man, we can get Diet Coke. And I said, we're there. Because they had their keg of stuff and they were drinking. They had all that stuff. And I said, man, we're there. And, you know, we'd play with them. And I'd have a football and I'd play catch with the guys and didn't judge, but in the process, drank our Diet Coke and enjoyed our son.
And we would just go and just love them. And can I tell you, I had no idea the effect that had.
Yeah.
3 years ago, Steve and I went to do a marriage conference in Austin, Texas. And the week before we went, I got a phone call, and it was one of Josh's friends from LSU. And Mark said, hey, Miss Debbie, he said, I see y'all are going to be in Austin this weekend. I said, yeah, Mark, what's going on? He said, well, I just got engaged. And he said, is there any way you and Mr. Steve can spend a little time with my fiance and I? And I said, absolutely. So we made arrangements to go to lunch with them after we finished teaching on Saturday. We went to lunch with Mark and his fiance, and we're sitting talking to him about communication and expectations and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, Mark reached across the table, and he put his hand on mine, and he said, I hate to interrupt you, but I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, you know, all those times that y'all would come to the LSU games and come tailgate with us? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I know that y'all didn't raise Josh that way. And he said, but because of the way you loved him, he said, y'all taught me more about Jesus than any church ever has.